Hey, how you doing? Good, I hope. Today's video, the Japanese contract that is better than a 100K salary, in my opinion. And I want to give you all the details, and I will, how you get the contract, um, why is the contract so good specifically, the path to it, everything that you might need to know, and why also I think that it's actually good for Japan when foreigners have this. But first, a kind of necessary disclaimer that you would do at the beginning of this. Japan is not a utopia. Uh, it has a lot of problems right now, so this isn't a silver bullet. And this, maybe most importantly, crucially, is one man's opinion. So when I say this, it's a perspective that I have from my world, from my experience, and take of that what you will. It's not meant to be gospel, but it is meant to be informative, and I hope it is that for you. So, what is this? First of all, I'll just define it. It's called a Seishain contract. And these are contracts in Japan where once you get them, it's very much like how would you say, a contract for life. And these contracts are not necessarily unique to the educational system, for which I will talk about it, but they can be applied to many different vocations that you could have in Japan. But I'm going to speak specifically from the educational angle. So the big question is, what do we open up with? How do you get there? And why do you have to get there from this particular process? So if you're going to get a Seishain contract in the educational system, first and foremost, it's that this is not something that you would simply come over and get right away. And so I think then it is especially good for people who want to take a kind of long view of Japan. They're not just thinking of the hit and run. They're going to come over, they're going to do something for a little while and then leave or whatever else. It's if you're perhaps thinking of permanent residency, if where you live now is not viable, I know it's tough out there, and you're looking for a way out, that's what it can be for. So you do have to be willing to go through the initial steps. And the initial steps are, you would usually start with, and it's the one that's most popular for teaching in Japan, it would be a contract that you would get through something like a dispatch company. And these are often the hit and run jobs. They're not that impressive. You could do a whole library of videos, just like it's really easy to, as they say, dunk on the dispatch companies. But in the context of gaining experience and getting into the country, they can, in fact, be a very good option for you. So you would come over initially and you would get one of these and you would work for something like an Interact. You would work for a Berlitz. You would work for a Nova. And don't expect the salary to be very large. That's, again, I think I mentioned in my previous video just how low the entry-level contracts are right now. But you gain experience and you can start to learn the language. That's very important for the Seishain contract as well. I'll just jump ahead for a moment to say that when you interview for this, that you'll usually interview for, or you'll do many interviews, but one of them or several of them are going to be in Japanese, just as they are if you have another step in this and you work for a Kyoto Inkai and you work for a board of education. So you want to be over here building up that experience, building up your Japanese, and really becoming a good teacher. That's the thing too that you could fall victim to, is that many people who come over and do the ALT role, it's with the thought that it actually is so undemanding that they only really want to be here for a little bit, and so they'll stand in the classroom and assist, but they don't really make the effort to become the better teacher. So you already need to differentiate yourself in that way. You do need to pay attention. You do need to create good lesson plans. I actually recommend, if you can, get elementary school positions, because if you get these, you're way more the teacher. Like officially and legally now, it's supposed to be that an assistant language teacher is only ever teacher 2, T2. But in elementary schools, where often the English is a much lower level, the Japanese staff rely on the foreign ALT or AET or whatever to lead the classes while the teacher is still present. Little pro tip for you there. So that's how it gets started. You go and you get this dispatch experience, and then very, very quickly, I would say actually within 1 year, you would then move on to something like a Kyoiku Inkai. Try to get that. And so these Board of Education positions, you can usually find them on, well, if you went to a prefectural website, you can find postings there. For example, you could look at, or cities, I did is it Kasama? That's where I was. But you could look at Osaka, you could look at just any number of places. And it's also a good bet to go the road less traveled. Look at these places that might be less popular, because then you'll have less competition within that Board of Education to get in there. And then you get into the Board of Education and you're already going to see a great upgrade. So where you're probably going to be making something like, I don't know, 210,000 yen a month, you will immediately move on to something, I think at the absolute lowest, it would be about 280. And at the higher end, you could make something like 330,000 yen a month. And then if you're in a really, really good Board of Education, as my friends are, who became these specialists, these Seishain contract teachers, they will give you bonuses. So you can get a twice a year bonus, and these are obviously significant and pad your income to a great degree. And here you are being treated more like a real member of staff, still an assistant, but you are more integrated into the school system, more assimilated. And then here is where it gets a bit kind of less clear, because you could transition quickly from that Board of Education role if you do a great job, or maybe you just like it and so you want to stay there a little bit before you feel quite confident enough yet to move on to the next position. But why the Board of Education is often a good transitional point is that the Board of Education is looking for these teachers that are perhaps going for that permanent residency, and they want to transition from the Board of Education into that. Quick moment, cool little garden. Let's check that out. And now I can move on to talk about the Seishain contract and the particular role in the educational system that you'll have, why it's so good, why it's so awesome. So once you've got that experience and you've identified that this Board of Education is looking for these higher level teachers, then you can ask them, hey, is there any application window that I can apply within? And you get to work. And then what you will get with this is a permanent contract, so long as you don't screw it up. And as I said, there is an element of speaking Japanese much better because you're going to have interviews. But if you can succeed, you'll become the role, not the contract, but the name of the role is called a senka, or they'll actually call you in the schools a specialisto, an English specialist. And so you're not an English teacher. It's almost like you're something above that. Although all these things, these titles, what's in a title, right? Now, if you get the role, not talking about the interview process now, because that's quite a tangled web of interviews and stamps and tests that you need to write, but I'll talk about why is it that it's just so amazing. It's that it removes the glass ceiling from you that you often find when you're even in a Board of Education role, which when you're in a Board of Education, as I was, that they'll renew your contract every single year, mostly with the assumption that it's only a formality, but you could get the rug pulled. You never know what's going to happen in the economy, and then you might not have that job security. And very importantly, for people who are looking for this permanent residency, perhaps to buy a home, to be here in the long term, your salary is almost always, even if you get up to this point, maybe you got raises up to 330,000 yen a month, and then you even get bonuses, your salary is not going to go up anymore. Whereas there is a ceiling again with the Seishain contract working as a senka, but it's much, much higher than what you would get in the Board of Education role. So just talking about it plainly, candidly, more money, that's really, really good. Now, in addition to this, you have a sort of probationary year where you got to do a great job. You're going to get reviewed. You're going to have observation lessons. You're going to run the gambit. You're going to have all this responsibility, much more than you would have as an ALT, and even more so than you would have working for the Board of Education, but still on the yearly contract. You're going to have all this responsibility. But if you clear that year, then you convert from this probationary period to the point where, so long as you're doing your job quite well, you still got to have respect for what you're doing. It really is like a contract for life. And then, well, let's just discuss the benefits. So obviously, you're going to have your pension assisted with, healthcare is obviously assisted with. You will, in some cases, I know teachers that get housing stipends. So if you're renting a place, as we all must, or unless you bought something, lucky you, then they can assist with that. So even if your salary is not quite as high to begin with, it can be made more robust by the inclusion of that. Also, when I say that the salary goes higher, as a public servant and a member now fully integrated with the Japanese school system, it just goes up and up and up. And it also, this is another benefit to say you're a teacher who's a little bit older that's going to do this. When you convert, your salary's determination will be made on how old you are. So those years that you put into Japan, building up your reputation, building up your skill set, integrating with the culture in a wholesome way, now it really counts for something, which is amazing. So there's that. And then there's another detail. Why is this so good? It really is good. That's why I say it can be better than a 100K salary elsewhere because of all these benefits, is that because you are a Seishain contract, if you then got permanent residency, because I'm guessing a lot of people who are interested in this want to do the long term, they're looking at this from the long view. These Seishain contracts are incredibly valuable in interactions with Japanese banks. So they will take you way more seriously if you were going to take out a loan and you're a permanent resident and you have a Seishain contract as opposed to something else, because reputationally you're considered to be much, much more reliable because you're not going to get fired. You've got this incredible contract, so you'll be able to continue on. That's incredibly appealing. Now, I come to the final most important element of why this is worth more than any other contract that you could get in Japan. It's really good for Japan because if you are this kind of teacher that is taking this long view, that means you're invested in the country and you have a genuine desire to assimilate with it. You've made so much of an effort that you're actually going to become a full member of staff. Oh, and by the way, they sponsor your teacher's license, so you'll be able to teach alone. And that's what Japan needs. It needs people that if they are going to come over, that they care about Japan in this way, and they have that desire to assimilate fully rather than benefit from all the amazing systems that are here, and there are many, and then to take off and leave. So I think it's good for Japan. It's amazing for the people who can actually get there and achieve this in the end. And I think for a lot of people, it can be a wonderful, viable option when so many things are so difficult right now. Like the world's tough. Getting jobs is tough. Job security is tough. I appreciate all of that. The comment section in my last video was just filled with this. So take with this all a grain of salt, as I said at the start. It's one man's opinion. I can only see what I can see, and I can try and help. And so that's what I'm doing. What is it Charlie Chaplin says? More than cleverness, the world needs kindness. So let's be kind to each other. Thanks for watching this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.